Great West London.
This is Hayes FM.
So it's just Tom.
Tom.
Yeah?
Just Tom, yeah.
Just Tom from Unstoppable Mind.
Unstoppable Mindset, yeah.
Oh, Mindset.
Mindset, yeah.
Oh, I keep saying mind when I'm like writing it down and stuff. Sorry. Hello anyone that's online, live on Facebook. We're about to go live on the radio. Hang with us from 1 till 3 today, if you like. I'm with Tom. Tom from Unstoppable Mindset. So we've got a good interview lined up for you today. This thing's really annoying being in my way. These are our mics, by the way, so when that's up,
yeah,
you're live through the mic. When that's down, you're off air.
Okay, cool, no worries.
Yeah,
wicked, yeah.
Hello and welcome to 91.8 Hayes FM. This is the Waishee Radio Show. I'm Nicola Chan, and today I have Tom from Unstoppable Mindset.
Hi guys, you alright?
How are you doing today, Tom?
Yeah, very good, thank you, very good.
Just doing a bit of a mic check there to make sure I can hear you on your mic. Sounds good to me. So I've never met you before, so this is sometimes great when you have somebody in the studio you've never met, so you've got loads of questions, and obviously you can have a free-flowing conversation.
Yep.
So I heard about you through, well actually I think one of your friends sent me something, but I saw you on Brandon Block's interview.
Yeah.
Brandon Block from Happy Days, and if you guys have been listening, we had Brandon on this show before, and I was also on his show, and he's all about mindset now, positive thinking, helping people with mental health, depression, all those kind of things. So that's pretty much the topic today. If anyone has any questions, we are live on Facebook on Nicola Waishee Chan, so please get online, ask us your questions, and we are on live radio as well, obviously 91.8 Hayes FM. So if you're on Facebook and you'd like to join us on the radio, you can go online and find us. If you're not local in the area, you can also listen there. So Tom,
yes,
tell us about yourself. I'd love to hear your story. You can tell us as little or as much detail as you like. So what is Unstoppable Mindset, and tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, of course. Unstoppable Mindset started off as something and has developed into something bigger, far deeper, I think, than what it originally was. I mean, to give you some background, I've been in the fitness industry for 17 years. So I started off my career working as a fitness instructor in some local health clubs around the sort of Staines and Chertsey area, and I was getting into that career, you know, shortly after the spell of like a long wild stint of, you know, which started in my teenage years, going up to the age of 18, where it really started getting quite serious into the kind of club scene, rave scene, and the recreational drug scene. And that kind of took over my life, as well as when I was at school. I had quite a lot of drive and quite a lot of purpose. I was quite creative, so I was into art. I loved doing drama, and was quite good at cooking as well. And so when I left school, I kind of had three things mainly that I thought I might pursue, but looking back, wrongly at the time, I just rubbished them all off as like no hope careers. I just kind of dismissed you know, years of like of hobby and passion. I just dismissed them and slowly found my way into drugs and into music, and I fell in love with it, so I'm not going to lie, and it was what I lived for. So from the age of 18 up to the age of about 22, drugs became sort of a bit of an issue in my life, where I was doing them and then I was trying not to do them, and I started to become aware at a young age that there was a problem, or it was causing me a problem mentally. So when I found the fitness industry, I felt that was going to be my saviour, and it sort of coincided as well with the birth of my firstborn, my first daughter. So I felt like I'd been given a lifeline, but when you become attached to something and you grow up with something, it becomes ingrained psychologically. So I soon realised that it was, you know, that it was always lurking there in the background, the danger to kind of, or the lust, should I say, to do drugs was always there. I just kept trying to suppress that. I didn't really deal with it, I just tried to suppress it. So the fitness industry for me, when I began and thought it was going to be a saviour for me, it soon became another issue, which is important for me to tell you before I go on to explain Unstoppable Mindset, because the fitness industry brought out a lot of deep insecurities with myself. I had, through my stint of doing drugs at a young age, I started to develop issues with the way I looked, and insecurities with my body, insecurities in my face, and I actually developed this real potent and dark loathing towards myself, to the extent that when I was 19 I took an overdose and tried to take my own life. And at the time it was a serious attempt, and it was purely based on the fact that I was not comfortable in my own skin. I didn't like the sight of myself, and that birthed an obsession and a deep ingrained insecurity and a really negative relationship with the mirror, which obviously now I realise that that's what a lot of people face, and there's a lot of people that go through that kind of stuff, and it's one of the kind of the darker secrets behind mental health. I feel that are really hard to speak about. It's one of the more uncomfortable things to speak about. So that became an issue for me, and unfortunately, and it is my own doing, the fitness industry, being around lots of fit people and body conscious people, for me it turned into a bit of an obsession, and then through that I found steroids, and steroids became a massive psychological problem for me. One, because I was ashamed of doing it. It was like a dark secret internally, and eventually it became an addiction. So fast forward, it wasn't all bad. I just want to stress it wasn't all bad, but I think what I did and what I did incorrectly was, for me, I've learned that state of minds and depression and any negative mindset comes in waves almost. It was never permanent, but at the times that it wasn't there, I was distracted more than anything else. I hadn't actually dealt with anything. In fact, I'd never dealt with anything. I just constantly kept finding new ways to distract myself. The number one distraction for me, and obviously since doing the Unstoppable Mindset and speaking to lots and lots of people in the last 4 years, I've realised that the method of distraction, in terms of whether it be social media, alcohol, drugs, even sometimes blindly throwing yourself into exercise as a method of kind of saving you, can all lead to this kind of like circle where you come back round and your problems will just come back out and face you, and they did for me. So I had my whole career in the fitness industry, and then by the time I got to the age of, it was 35, 36, I was to have my biggest wake-up call and my biggest life lesson in the form of a mental breakdown. And I was sectioned under the Mental Health Act, and I was faced with a choice at that point, faced with a serious life choice, and that was to face my inner demons, look within, try to turn my life around somehow, knowing full well at that time that if I didn't, I knew I had a problem. I knew that life wasn't going anywhere, and I had to face all of the issues that had been causing me a problem for so long, that I'd spent years and years dealing with, by just switching off via drink and drugs and other methods. So it took me a year after that breakdown to pull myself together, and I decided to do a run one time. It was about 6 months after my breakdown, and I decided to do a run, and it was a big thing for me because I'd had an issue with my weight for so long, hence obviously the steroids. So I always wanted to run, but I couldn't. So it was a case of, right, okay, I felt an urge to do it. I felt in my heart that there would be some benefit from doing it. I didn't really know why, but I knew it would take great strength to overcome the weight issues, because as soon as I started running, my weight would start to plummet. But sure enough, I threw myself into it, and it was through that process where I started to change mentally and grow mentally, and once I completed the run, which was in December 2016, which was just over a year after the breakdown, my life started to change in the most amazing way. And Unstoppable Mindset was then born in about March 2017, and it's been like a whirlwind ever since.
Can I just pause you on that?
Yeah.
Because we've got loads of show left as well, and
Yeah.
obviously I really want to know about
Yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
amazing change that you've had,
Yeah,
the spiritual
yeah, yeah,
awakening,
yeah,
and
yeah.
so much more to go into.
Yeah, of course.
But I just want to go back to the beginning, because I'm really interested, even like what even got you into fitness in the first place?
Yeah, exactly. I think obviously when we were talking a minute ago, and you said about one door closing, another one opens, that's really been this whole journey from the very start. I actually was doing something completely different, and I wasn't into fitness at all. Again, I've already said, raving and drugs was my thing. I used to have mates say, Tom, like, you coming to the gym? And I'm like, no, I'm not coming to the gym. I'm like quite happy doing what I'm doing. And that was that. I was sort of getting into training, but more sort of like weights and stuff like that. So no real fitness. I've done a bit of boxing. I'd had a couple of amateur fights. So it was kind of there, but certainly not like a passion of mine. And I got made redundant from one job. And I was scratching around, didn't really know what to do. I was still a bit lost mentally, I think, at that time, and didn't really have any real purpose in life. And I remember to this day standing in the kitchen around my mum and dad's house. Mum said, what about this? And there was an article with an advert for becoming a fitness instructor. And I actually didn't even know what a fitness instructor was, because the gym I trained at was over in Slough, the Thames Valley University gym in Slough, which isn't there anymore. And that was just spit and sawdust. There was no fitness instructors in there. It was just a case of going in and chuck some weights around. So I was like, yeah, that sounds good, and ploughed myself into it, went on the course and fell in love with it. I absolutely...
It's interesting, that's how I did mine as well. I wasn't into fitness myself as such before,
Right.
and I went straight into being an instructor.
Right.
So not go into it for myself first, go into it to help everybody else.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I fell in love with that. What I always loved about it was that my time as a fitness instructor was really a great experience of learning about people, about people's wants and needs, and then actually really starting to learn about people psychologically. And that was one of the biggest things that intrigued me always from the start, because when you do a fitness instructor course, you kind of come off the back of it and you're given like the template of how to change people's lives, I suppose, and motivate and write diets and do this and do that. But you realise there's way much more involved than that, and it's purely psychological. It really is. And
they don't teach you that in college, do they?
No, that's what they don't teach you.
They also teach you that whatever it is they come in with, you're going to do that for them.
Yeah.
But that may not be what they really need.
No.
It's what they want.
Yeah, of course.
But what they need is deep down.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is, I think we can all be fooled. I think everybody that comes through, I don't think, in my experience now, and listening and watching people for so many years, I realise that everyone that comes in the door essentially is searching for something. And anyone that comes in even and says, I want to lose weight, when you break down the reasons why they want to lose weight and why they ended up putting on weight, then you start to get to the real nitty-gritty of what their life's like, what they're going through, and you realise that everyone, with exception to a handful, I know I'm not labelling everyone with the same kind of state of mind, but the majority of people, they're stuck in this battle against themselves, and I don't actually necessarily think that they're searching for the perfect body. They think perhaps that weight loss will bring them some happiness, and the fitness will bring them some happiness, but 9 out of 10 times it doesn't. They get a short, fleeting sense of achievement. They feel motivated for a while, but everyone I come across goes in this state and out of that state, and it's that underlying kind of the underlying issues, the whys of what they're doing, and kind of the life issues that I've started to delve more into. And what I've noticed is that when you've actually approached that side of things, they've had far greater success anyway in their fitness, in their job, in their life in general. When you started to break down kind of underneath that, oh, I want to do this, I want to achieve this, I want to get fit, I want to lose weight. So like, why, really why? And then you start to really, get into them.
So for yourself then, as you went into the fitness industry and then became a teacher straight away, what was your experience with yourself then in your own journey in getting yourself fit and also being that role model, that leader for everybody else?
I definitely loved it. I had a great sense of achievement out of helping others, but soon enough, And this was more like then under the radar, and this is my front. It was a front, I had a front the same as everyone else. I had an identity and a persona that I would portray, and I portrayed, don't get me wrong, it wasn't completely false, but I was an advocate of good health. I was an advocate of getting fit and staying healthy. But for me personally, then underlying that, there was insecurities, there was issues with the way I looked, issues with my body that I was willing to change at whatever cost. And if that meant doing something that was potentially risky to my health, I would be willing to do it to try and achieve the happiness and the peace that I thought it would bring. I found
so you're on
out
the same journey as your client.
Yeah, on the same journey.
And was it mainly aesthetics?
Yeah, it was always aesthetics. At whatever cost.
Which is the trouble with society and marketing, isn't it? Because it shows us that is the picture of health. And actually to be healthy, like all of the things that we've done, I've been nodding along the whole way through because I relate to a lot of the things you said and had my own journey with that as well. But yeah, when you actually achieve it, you're not healthy, or I wasn't anyway in my case. A lot of things you do along the way are not healthy things. So health is one side and aesthetics is the other.
I think it's really frustrating to see, but I think the great position that society is in now, and where my talks that I've been running since 2017 have been so well received, is because I'm highlighting the absolute obvious and making what you just said very, very clear to people. People have been trying this game for a long time, this fitness game, this body image game. I've dealt with a lot of guys who outwardly look amazing, and I've had some guys crying to me because they have, issues building up of body dysmorphia. They still think they're thin when they're like 17 stone, and it is really, really sad to see. Thankfully, I managed to break free from it, but learning to accept myself has been the hardest part of my journey. It's hard to do that. It's hard to do that when still we're living in a society when if you just walk into Tesco along the magazine aisle, ripped guy there on the front cover, woman on there on the front cover talking about her weight, her body, that this weight is right, that this is correct, that you can get bigger arms in 2 weeks, and this and this and this. It's all false, it's all lies, and it's all aesthetically driven. If you focus purely on the aesthetic side of training, personally for me, I have not seen it end in happiness. I've seen so many people do so well. They've changed their lives, they've come in, they've been overweight, and they've got to their ideal weight, and they've still been absolutely miserable and still seen the bigger person, the unfit person, the ugly person that's ingrained psychologically in their subconscious mind. And it's heartbreaking to see. So for me, for the rest of my career, along with many others now starting to change this way, I'm an ambassador of good physical health. But most importantly is the mindset and the mental health, because without that you have nothing. It doesn't matter what you achieve outwardly, body, you can get money, you can get career, your relationship, the best partner, female, male that you want. If inwardly, if mentally it's not right, it won't ever be right.
Well said. And right on point actually, because we have a break now.
Perfect.
So guys on Facebook, bear with us, we have a little break for the radio. We'll be right back after this. You can have a break from your ears. Let's see if anyone's... Tom, hello. Oh, Gerda, hi Gerda. I have to go like this, I don't know why it's coming up sideways. Seen Tom in his journey, at least a little well done to him.
Oh.
Do you know Gerda?
Yeah. She used to train at my gym.
Oh, yeah. I know her as well through fitness. Well, actually, because obviously we're both into fitness, we probably have a lot of friends in common.
Oh, right, I see. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad you said all that stuff about body image and mindset. Yeah, I relate to all of that.
Yeah.
And I wanted actually to get a guy on here talking about male body image. Because guys don't talk about it enough.
No. I was just chatting to someone recently. another guy, just recently this year, done a body transformation, miserable as sin, so unhappy, and he just doesn't know what to do. He's got a hold on him, can't stop, he never comes off. He'll either be on a course or be doing some job or something once a week, and he's miserable, and he hates it, and he knows it affects him mentally, it affects his mood, but he just can't. He's addicted, psychologically addicted. It's the most dangerous thing.
Yeah, I was that. I was addicted to exercise and achieving this goal that I thought would give me happiness.
Yeah.
You know, if I look like that, then I'll accept myself, then I'll love myself. And I won my first bodybuilding show competition, and I still wasn't happy. Like that moment standing on stage, it was like, yes, I've made it. And then immediately after, like that come down, it was like, what next? How can I be bigger? How can I be better? How can I be leaner? And also they're judging you, aren't they? All of the people, even if you win, it's still look at you from head to toe. What's right? What's wrong? And you can take that personally, like it's something wrong with you.
I think a great thing is
oh, just a short one. You can tell me that on air if you like. Hello, welcome back to 91.8 Hayes FM. This is the Waishee Radio Show. I'm Nicola Chan and I'm interviewing Tom from the Unstoppable Mindset. We were just talking before the break there about body image, Tom's journey as well, and I'd like you to share what you were going to say to me off air there.
Yeah, no, we were just talking about obviously, you know yourself, Nicola as well, that you've done a bodybuilding competition, and you always had it set in your head, which I totally understand, and actually know many people that have said the same thing, that you set these goals and you have this perception that when you get there you'll accept yourself, when you get there you'll be happy with yourself, when you get there you'll love yourself, and every time you get there you're not, and in my opinion then there's always a little bit more to achieve. But for me, what I had underlying was the awareness that, well, time's ticking, right? Time's ticking. We're getting older every second, every day, and that's inevitable. So there's that subconscious knowing that, well, I'm going to lose the body anyway at one point. So all the while I was doing steroids, I had this fear, this big fear develop of old age. I'm like, well, I know that this body's going to go, and I can't surely...
You say that at such a young age.
Yeah, because I can't stay on I'm like, well, I'm not going to be doing steroids when I'm 60 or I'm so then what happens? Like, because this desire to hold on to this physique, I became attached to it. I didn't want it to end, and then that's where the addiction to steroids begins, is because, and I know many guys that have like affirmed this to me, that I've actually been surprised hearing some of the stories from some of the guys, because they're not outwardly portraying that they've got any issues with it at all, but again, it becomes a problem to them just to lose 1 pound. They fear losing the body that they fall in love with, but then also, unfortunately, that everyone then comments on, you're looking good, you're looking well, and that is the world we live in. Yeah. And unfortunately we're doing it to each other. It's like, for all of these problems that are starting to emerge very dominantly, we all need to come together, because the women need to start to see beyond the superficial, and the guys also need to see beyond the superficial, and we all need to understand that. And I know it sounds so cliche, and it's things like this that I would have sworn at and told someone to, like, be quiet. Beauty is within. It really is. Being miserable and being sad and being frustrated and being angry is no way to live your life. I could be, this is just my opinion, and I could be wrong, I don't believe any happiness, long-lasting happiness and inner peace comes from chasing a body that will
Sorry, I just have to say that.
that will eventually disappear. You can't hold on to it regardless.
Anyone watching who knows me, they know they're probably like cheering.
Yeah, well, but again, that's not saying, okay, well, what are you saying? Sit on the sofa, do nothing. No, there is move in the body. We're meant to move. We're meant to be active.
There's also the way you move your body. Like when I was in that mindset, I'm hating myself.
Exactly.
So every weight I'm lifting, I'm like, I deserve to be punished.
Yeah.
Like I want to hurt myself through this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's quite hard actually to go from that to then a form of loving yourself and doing it to actually have self-care and, like you said, move your body because it feels natural and it's right to do so.
The hardest, and I want to make it clear for anyone that's listening, because if they're sitting there and they're wondering how, for me it was an acknowledgement of, you know, and a deep felt awareness and acknowledgement from the heart. I cannot carry on like this anymore. I don't want to carry on like this anymore. So at first, even though I didn't fully embrace myself, the running helped for me, but even though I still didn't fully embrace myself, I made a commitment to working towards loving myself. And it's a journey that I would say spanned over 4 years. There was ups, there was downs, it was very tough. But because I'd ended in such disaster and such an unhappy place, I knew that the model, the blueprint of my life and how I lived it before completely didn't work. So I knew that chasing the body wasn't working. I knew that drugs weren't working. I knew that alcohol wasn't working. I knew that, you know, constantly trying to chase money and trying and do all this, I knew none of that brought me happiness. So I thought, okay, there's something I'm missing. And that's where this 4-year journey has taken me.
Just still on the fitness note there, because we've got another break coming up at 1:30 anyway, so we may as well stick on the fitness. I'm just wondering if, as the instructor, and you were going through your own journey just as your clients and members were, did you feel then the pressure, because you mentioned something before about like people looking at you, or you know, you're their leader, you're their role model. Did you feel pressure of, I need to eat a certain way, I need to, like, because I'm always on show, so like you're building your body to be this, what you consider to be perfect?
The sad thing was, and this is the sad thing, and it used to really dishearten me so much so, when I was taking steroids and doing everything unhealthy, people were saying, are you looking well? And then when I tried to pull myself off steroids and I might throw myself into boxing for a minute and start running, and I'd start losing weight, people say, oh, Tom, you're right, you're not well. And so I was like, I can't do this, it's killing me. So what people's perception, this just proves what people's perception of good health is, and it's led by the media, it genuinely 100%. Is. They're reinforcing it still all the time. It makes me mad. It makes me mad. It shouldn't be allowed. You know, we're in such a contradictory society at the minute. There's things that could be done immediately now. And one of the things is to stop portraying an absolutely chiseled body, male or female, and then putting them in line with the word health. That doesn't necessarily make for health. Like I said before, mental health, and we all know it now, you can't hide from it. It's more important than anything else. Physically do what you want, chase money all you want. Without the mental stability in your life, without an inner acceptance of the way you are, you're in trouble and you're going to keep going around in circles. Fact.
So what does health look like to you?
Health looks like balance to me. It really does. There isn't an obsession in your life. And again, I'm not when I say these things, these are things I've had to spend 4 years working on, and I'm going to be honest, my journey continues. It won't ever stop. So I know that I'm always having to work on myself. I'm aware of when I slip, but I know that balance is key. I believe that getting rid of a sense of right or wrong, good or bad, because having those perceptions can
all or nothing.
Can lead you to beating yourself up. So for example, you know, I have this mentality. I say, okay, well, you know, eat what you want. Don't put it into a category of good or bad, and instinctively pay attention to how you feel. And I say, okay, well, how do you want to feel? Say, okay, I want to feel really good. Okay, fine. Well, now proceed, eat whatever you want and do your own experiment. What foods are making you feel like how you want to feel, and what foods aren't? And then make a decision accordingly, and let your own kind of lifestyle map build up. If you need someone to tell you what to eat, okay, and don't get me wrong, we all need advice, but fundamentally, I say something has gone so wrong, because we evolved for millions of years knowing exactly what to do. We survived the worst conditions known to mankind, and we knew exactly what to do. Now all of a sudden, since the media have got involved and since food companies have got involved, all of a sudden we haven't got a clue what to do.
And the pharmaceutical
And yes, exactly.
On that note, we have a break though.
Cool.
This is our local news. We'll be right back.
Whew.
Oh, I'm like getting enraged with passion now, because I'm really excited about this.
Yes, let's do this. Yeah, me too. Once you get going though, it's true, isn't it? But we need, you know, it needs to be a revolution. It does. It needs everybody. Everyone's got to be like this, like me and you. Everyone's got. So for the likes of you and the likes of me who know it and see it clearly in the beam, I feel it's our responsibility to come together and to push this message like hard as possible. Huh?
To tell the
Tell
truth.
the truth. Tell it, listen, and everyone knows anyway. It's really common sense now. So show me.
But they want the quick fix.
Yeah. But they're all starting to find out that it doesn't exist. We know it. Look at every diet book. How comes Joe Wicks is so popular? Because every single other diet was tried and failed. And now Joe Wicks, in another 10 years' time, he'll be just one that was just at that time, and there'll be another one. Constantly reinventing the wheel, really.
Have you heard of intuitive eating?
No, but that's kind of what I do, though.
Yeah, there is a book about that,
Yeah.
and there's loads of research on it, and it is like you said, like when we're babies, we know what to eat, you can't overfeed you, and you know, you cry when you're hungry, you know when you're full.
Yeah, sorry.
And it's basically like come back to that as an adult.
Absolutely.
However, we do still have like moral values over food and guilt and shame and things like that because of dieting for so long and because of the media. I mean, even the way things are labelled, they're marketed like guilty and sin.
Sin free.
So you think that you're bad if you eat that. Like, I'm a bad person now because I ate a cake.
That's right. That's right. It's just madness out there. It's madness.
So how do you feel? You probably really feel like on a high because you've had loads of sugar.
Yeah, exactly.
But you feel really guilty as hell.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You bash yourself up for like the next 5 days. It's crazy.
I want to talk a little bit about that when we come back on.
Yeah, sure.
This is a longer one because we have local news and then the what's on, so it has like all of the local what's on in the area, and then there's a little bit of talking, then we have another break at 22.
Cool.
And then it's the longest bit up to the o'clock.
That's alright. Cool. It's good, man.
It's still hot in here, isn't it? Like the air's coming in, but
literally boiling. It's all good though.
91.8 Hayes FM.
is that killing your ears? Is it too loud?
No, it's perfect.
Because I can't check my messages now that I'm using the phone.
Oh no, it's perfect.
I should know how to turn them down.
No, it's all good.
I admit it, I'm winging it. Sometimes I'm writing a book as well, and sometimes I think I might just title it "Winging Life."
Yeah, blagger. It's wicked. It's the best way.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not working. Any ideas?
Oh, it's on full blast.
Full blast warm. Hey Pete, can you turn the camera to the side? Yeah, but why is it doing that though? It should have just done it sideways. Because if I turn it around now, then it's going to be... Well, then we can't fit everybody in.
Oh well, don't worry.
Yeah.
I don't really know.
So to answer your question, we can't. We're going sideways. Now you've messed up my video, Peter. You can't turn your phone whilst you're live. Well, I just did. What's it going to do now? That's weird, isn't it? Because normally, if you turn it sideways, it should just... I think because my phone's a bit broken, you can see it's a bit bashed up.
It's a bit bashed up then.
Yeah, sometimes I'm doing the maps and I turn it to the side.
It's all about
and
getting a new one. I think, now.
Yeah.
Upgrade. It's upgrade. You must treat yourself.
It's not time.
Yeah. So what you got like? What's your plans now like at the moment, sort of career-wise? So you're writing your book and.
Yeah, that's an ongoing thing.
That's cool.
Because it is like you said about the journey. It is the journey. I'm still documenting it as I go. But there's loads more still to come, so it's in no way.
Yeah,
ready.
That's good. I like that.
But I like journaling, blogging. I have a group on Facebook. I write a lot of stuff in there.
Cool, man. Yeah.
But it's a way of like getting it out of me as well. And I think, well, if it helps someone, then why not? Right, we're back on. Hello, welcome back to 91.8 Hayes FM, the Waishee Radio show. We are live on Facebook as well. Our Nicola Waishee Chan join us for the live video. I'm Nicola Chan. This is Tom from Unstoppable Mindset, and we're having an interview about Tom's journey. We're talking about body image before the break, and I'm really glad actually to have a guy talking about body image because, as far as I'm aware, guys don't talk enough about it. What's your experience? Because obviously being a guy, they're going to open up a bit more to you. Do you feel like you have to be honest with everybody first and then it kind of gives them permission to do the same back to you, or do people just talk to you anyway?
No, I mean, again, before all this began in 2017, as in the mindset stuff, I hadn't said a word to anyone about anything. I just felt compelled over the Christmas of 2016. I started writing about the past year, the breakdown, and everything what I'd gone through. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this a punt and do a talk in January to my customers. And I just literally heart on the sleeve laid it all bare and came out. And ever since then, you know, guys and women, but obviously, you know, the great thing is with the guys is that I don't typically talk, but guys and women are just started coming out and being open and honest. So one of the biggest things obviously I resonated with a lot of guys was they started to reach out to me with cocaine issues and drink issues, and the fact that it was destroying them and they were keeping that all buried inside, and have subsequently just, it's been amazing to help so many guys transform their lives. There's been some absolutely amazing stories through this process. But yeah, I had, you know, I've mentioned the steroids a few times, and guys that, you know, you think didn't really care and weren't bothered, you know, they are all struggling with it. They really are, because it's the same thing. There's an awareness that they know that this can't go on forever, but they know that they're fully addicted to it. And I know many guys like myself that actually have even reached out to, you know, to the GP, and it's quite a tough thing for them. They're like, well, you know, they know that you can't stop. There isn't any kind of system in place, or there wasn't. Certainly when I went to the hospital and they referred me on to someone, they were saying, well, you're kind of in a bit of a predicament because your hormones are going to be a mess. You can't just stop. And they didn't really advise me that great, so I just continued and carried on. But yeah, so there are a lot of guys struggling, and it's still very hard to speak about. I think it's not the type of thing. Firstly, a lot of guys don't admit that they're taking them, for starters, and then to admit that they're addicted to them. I mean, who do they turn to? Who do they reach out to? So I understand how tough it is. Yeah.
So what made you want to speak out and be vulnerable in front of all the people that you were showing this persona to and being that leader to?
Do you know what? I don't really know. I had, again, you're just talking about intuition and intuitive eating. This has been a process of deep self-awareness. That's the biggest thing that I promote, is looking within. I felt like more so that I was guided. I felt compelled to write about what I did. I felt compelled to put on a talk. I didn't expect anything. I was nervous. I doubted myself. You know, you have the whole kind of inner voice, like, what are you doing? You know, people are just going to think you're a joke and stuff like that. So, but all the way along, it's got a great response, and I've done it for the people. I've done it for the people primarily. It's helped me massively. So obviously there was a big therapeutic benefit in just coming out and being honest with people, but then to see the changes that people have gone through, and it's just continued. It's been so dramatic.
It's interesting you say coming out, and you've said that a few times, you coming out to them and then people coming out to you. That's kind of how I felt as well.
Yeah.
I did exactly that. Like, everything you're saying I relate to so much.
Yeah.
I came out to my group, like, that I used to teach classes to, and I felt like I had the biggest like ego and this hat on that I just thought I really built myself up to be something, and I thought that they wanted that's what they needed. And they, like you said about people saying, oh, look at you, you're doing well, you're really healthy and blah blah, and they don't really know, and they'd be like, oh, I want to look like you, what do you eat, what do you do, and you know, they keep coming to you for advice. I felt like the biggest fraud, because I was actually having an eating disorder at the time. And for part of it I wasn't even aware that I had the eating disorder, but once I did, I really felt like a fraud. Like, how am I telling these people to do this and that when I can't do it myself? So my journey of coming out was really, like, massive, and I actually did a talk to people as well and just cried all over it.
Yeah, it's tough. Did you feel a sense of, then what you're saying then with like a fraud, also did you feel like an inner sense of guilt and almost like a bit of self-torment in the fact that you didn't really know how to kind of get out of that, in the sense that you're telling people one thing, but you know inside that you're not doing it, and you're telling also people to, you know, you're helping them to achieve something that, you know, actually when they get there isn't necessarily the answer that they're looking for?
I don't think, because most of it I was unaware of.
Right.
So I didn't really have the guilt, because if I was aware of it and carried on, then I'd feel guilty because I was aware of it.
Yeah.
You know, it was more like just self, you know, just inwardly attacking myself, basically. You're a fraud. Who do you think you are? You know, you've built up this thing and it's not even right, and now you've got to come out and be who you are. So I think it's that first step where you have to be really vulnerable and just start talking. And
honesty.
Yeah.
I think honesty, yeah. I think we're now in
That's when you first accept yourself, really, isn't it? Because you allow yourself to be true.
Allow yourself to be true. I like that. Yeah, just as real as you can be. And I think, that's all I've been in.
Another break there.
Okay, no worries.
All right. We'll be right back, Hayes FM. Hang in there, it's a short one now, and we will be talking to you all the way till 3 o'clock, so stay on the line.
So does this go out, where does this go out? Like, does this go out on FM? Or?
Yeah, so it is live radio 91.8.
Oh, right.
But most people have DAB now, don't they? So it's not on DAB, but it is on website, so you can listen to it anywhere, or you can get the app.
Cool.
Yeah, but like I said, I take a recording of it and I cut out all the adverts and make it into a podcast.
Oh, cool.
So once I've done that, I can send it to you as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. Yeah, I'll start sharing your stuff.
I can also do a YouTube video, depending how much time I have. But I can't do a video of this video because you can't take it out of Facebook, which is kind of annoying. We have cameras in here, and when it's all up and running properly, when we're not transitioning, then we'll have good videos and things. We'll have to get you back on.
Yeah, I'll get you on. We're gonna do some video podcasts, so I'll interview you.
Okay.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be in the hot seat.
Yeah, no, it'd be good though. Again, just having a chat, isn't it? I think it's great to hear, a woman say some of the stuff that you've been through also. It's got loads of women still bashing their head against the wall.
Yeah.
So it'd be good just to say, look.
I bash my head against the wall quite.
Yeah, it's tough.
Well, like you said as well, it's a journey, isn't it? And there is no finish line. I think when you think there's a finish line, like goals, if you attach everything to that goal, then you think you're going to be happy, you're going to reach all these things when you get there, but you don't, because then the goalpost moves.
100%.
So I like to set goals, obviously, like with NLP and everything, it's good to help you set goals, but then I think lose the attachment from the outcome, because it's the journey. You may even change your mind along the way, and that's the journey that you are meant to go on. Hello, we're back on air, 91.8 Hayes FM. This is the Waishee Radio show. Should we just carry on where we were? We were talking about body image. Yeah. I've kind of lost track there.
Yeah, no, I think we were finishing basically, the great position I think now that we're in with the body image thing, and since obviously coming out, being honest, and like you say about being honest, like one it's helping you, it's helping me obviously to, as part of our process of like almost like inner cleansing, but everyone is feeling the same thing. I haven't met anyone that's not feeling the same thing. There's frustration in the air. We're living in a society where for such a long time we've been led to believe that an external source can bring us happiness, and that's the body included. But we're talking body, we're talking money, we're talking fame, we're talking fortune. Is or is not society, in the West especially, proving conclusively that you can be famous and take your own life? You can be rich, you can be poor, you can be married, it goes on and on and on. People are taking their own lives for all sorts of reasons. There is a frustration in the air, there is a discontent, and that is because the only one thing that can bring you inner peace and inner happiness is pure acceptance of yourself. Acceptance of your situation, acceptance of your surroundings. It doesn't mean that you can't change your life for the better. It doesn't mean that I would not necessarily encourage that. But again, with a certain amount of animosity, inward animosity towards yourself, then you can't get what it is you're looking for. And there's so many celebs now, handsome, beautiful, wealthy. What's wrong with them? There's something going on inside that we have been missing. I believe it's something that is being overlooked, that's been around since the beginning of time, and that's something far deeper, more spiritual, and
What do you think it is? Let's go deep now.
Well, it's such a tough one, because I think when we're talking about, you know, if I mention the word spiritual, if I say, you know, we say obviously we go deep, this is something that it's there within us, but we've been blinded by this kind of natural light that we have, this natural love that we have inside of us, and we've been blinded by it through this kind of avid search for something else, thinking that something else is going to bring us what we already have inside of us. And it's not until you have exhausted, and trust me, and by the sounds of it you're exactly the same, exhausted all external avenues. I have exhausted all external avenues. I searched for this, I tried this, changed my body, changed food, changed everything. I'd done everything possible to bring myself closer to something that was going to bring me happiness and peace. When I finally discovered happiness and peace, it wasn't in anything external whatsoever. I actually had an experience leading up to my first run, which I didn't fully understand at the time, and that was when I was out running. I had this strong awareness of the negative thought pattern that was running around in my head, more so than ever before. And I persisted out in this run in the rain for such a long period of time, and it was, you know, I was ignoring everything that was going on, and the mind was telling me to stop, it was complaining, it was telling me to slow down, it was telling me to take a shortcut, it was, you know, everything possible to sabotage the run. The mind was active, and I could really hear it and was aware of it, and realised that if I wanted to get where I wanted to get to, I was going to have to ignore what was going on inside my head. And it was at the point where I got near to the end of the run that I had this amazing surge of energy, because it was kind of like a bit of a battle, this run, not just physically but mentally. I was going against the grain, like my mind was saying enough, stop. But I had this kind of like awareness of like, no, that's not the right advice for me right now. I need to just keep running. So when I got to the end of the run, I felt really uplifted, and it dawned on me a couple of months after, through another kind of chain of events, that if I can ignore thought whilst I'm out running, then surely I can ignore thought, period. Now, I say this was powerful knowledge for me to learn, because negative thought patterns had completely destroyed my life. And these are the thought patterns and the inner voice that were telling me, if you change your body, you'll be happy. If you do drugs, this will happen. You know, and all of these urges and these cravings and these wants and these needs and these desires, which were fueled by the voice inside my head, I realised were false. I realised that there was something else within me that could observe the thought patterns and then make a decision whether or not to listen. And that's one of the key things that changed my life, because I actually realised that instead of going along with a constant, you know, tagging along with the constant relay and the constant perceptions and judgments and the incorrect advice that comes deep within your subconscious mind, potentially from a past of knockbacks and failures and incorrect upbringing potentially. Once you realize that you have the ability to step away from that, observe it as what it is, just thought, and then make your own decisions in your life, not based on these reactive mind patterns, then I feel that something much, much stronger, much, much deeper within you emerges, and you start to develop a kind of a clarity and a quietness, and then you start to see all of the things that we've been talking about for what they are, and that is outward experiences that are just there. You know, they're not part of you, and they can't add anything to you. They just can't. And I think, you know, I don't go too hard into the deeper side of things, but it's just a case of reiterating to people, you're searching for something. Are the things you're searching for bringing you happiness, bringing you peace, bringing you fulfillment? And it's always a no. It's always a no. It doesn't matter what it is. And I know some rich people miserable.
Because sometimes it's not enough.
It's never enough.
Because you want that thing, but then I'm still lacking, so I want more.
That's
So the hardest bit is stopping in the first place, isn't it? Having that urge to get something, this thing from outside, and stopping yourself and knowing that actually I'm not empty and I need that to fill me, I'm full.
Absolutely spot on, and but it's also important to understand where this drive and this urge and this want comes from. It comes from your subconscious mind, and there's so many issues that are potentially linked to that. You know, again, if you're lacking something, and perhaps that something is coming from, you know, past letdowns, past failures, it could be that you're searching for, you know, you're outwardly searching for the body, for money, but really deep down you have this void in your life, and this emptiness that's coming from past, from knockbacks, and it's being aware of that. There's a lot of things that can be going on inside of your head that are driving you to make those decisions, and your mind is saying to you that that's going to help, and then when you get there and it doesn't, it will say that that's going to help, and when you get there it's saying no, you want more. That's because you haven't actually addressed the real issue. And if anyone is struggling, you know, with that cycle, and they're feeling that, and they're kind of like, yeah, no, I get that, I've been searching for this, then it's time to reach out and get help, because there's something much deeper that you're completely missing. And some NLP could help, some hypnotherapy could help, you know, finding a really great therapist can help to start to go into your mind, because what you must understand is this: your subconscious mind runs your life 95% of the day. And if your subconscious mind is built full of, you know, ridicule and failings, and maybe you were bullied at school, maybe, you know, you know, your parents were great parents, but every now and then they knocked you back and it hurt, that stays with you for life. So there's so much you can learn by looking within. And for me, once I realized that I had the ability to observe thoughts, I started to observe them and also look at where they were coming from, and you find out so much about yourself.
Do you care to share?
Yeah, no, just...
So you could say, for example,
okay, I'll be on
a
no.
negative thing that came up, and
absolutely,
where that came from, if someone might relate to that at home. Absolutely,
100%. I spent years as a boy idolising male movie stars. And again, it was a different time, I suppose. I don't want to make it out and sound like, you know, my mum and dad were great parents, but I was watching 15s and 18s at like the age of 10. I don't think it was seen as a bad thing, I don't know, but that's how it was. Rambo and all these different types of films. But I had this like fixation as a boy, sort of to growing up, like, oh, he's cool, I want to look like him. And then I start looking at myself in the mirror and starting to compare. That's one of the biggest problems in society at the moment, is this hierarchy of just these comparisons. You know, we're all unique, we're all special, we have so much more to give that lies skin deep. Yeah, okay. So again, the whole kind of outward image doesn't mean anything anyway. But unfortunately society still tells us it does. So I was really looking at myself and building up these comparisons. So I had never ever given this a second thought until I started looking deep within. I'm like, where have these insecurities come from? And I know, looking back, I was absolutely obsessed with wanting to try and create. I tried to change my image at the youngest age of 10, tried to like do my hair in a certain way that looked like this guy, and it just built up so much discontent at myself. I didn't accept myself. I just looked in the mirror and always wanted to change, and that is what, when I got to the age of 18, when I started to put drugs into my body, that emerged, that insecurity and that comparison, that emerged it so strong. I started to hate myself, actually. And once I had that unfortunate attempted suicide at 19, it stayed with me for years. It took me years to get over. That was so psychologically ingrained, but I knew it was in the mind. And although you can't erase memory, I knew that I could overcome it, because it was just a memory, not a fact. It wasn't a fact, it was a memory that I needed to overcome. It was a memory that my subconscious mind was playing to me over and over and over again. So when I looked into the mirror at 19 and looked at my face and hated it and just thought, right, I can't look at myself anymore, I'm not how I want to be, then because that was so fierce and ingrained with so much anger and torment at the time, then obviously it was a memory that was fiercely ingrained. And any memory that's ingrained with pain or past emotion is a strong memory, and your subconscious mind will play it over and over again. So you'll never ever actually even just see yourself. You'll just see the warped perception, the comparison version, and you'll say, my nose doesn't look like his, or my eyes don't look like his, and my smile's not like his, and my body's not like his. So yeah, so these are the type of things that I have discovered, and it's really good knowledge to know, because any sticking points that I come across, if I couldn't help myself, I said, right, I'm going to see a therapist, and I would be open and honest. And these were really hard things to talk about first, really hard things. I found them embarrassing to say that I didn't like myself, I didn't like my face, I didn't like this. It was really hard, but therapeutic.
Therapeutic in the talking.
Yeah, it's got to be done. It's got to be done. Nothing.
Because sometimes when you say stuff, it's like admitting it to yourself, isn't it? Because otherwise it just stays in your head with all the other things.
Yeah, it's got to come out.
Which is why I guess it's hard, because it makes it true.
Yeah, and you almost don't want to face it. You almost don't want to face it. You know, that's what this.
It's getting out of the comfort zone.
It's getting out of the comfort zone, yeah. And I suppose I realised as well that all I'd ever done, drugs really, even though at first it was a laugh with my mates, they slowly switched from a laugh to actually a form of self-medicating. I had all these issues with myself, I had all these insecurities, but give me a couple of lines of coke and give me a few ecstasy tablets, and I felt fine. It was a false fine, I want to make that clear, and a very destructive fine, because obviously, you know, all the while I was doing that as a form of self-medication to try and cope with my ways, my tendencies, my insecurities, I was destroying myself mentally and physically, which I paid the price for heavily, you know, 20 years on from the start of the whole journey of drugs. Yeah.
Right, we're going to have a break now.
Cool.
And then we'll be right back. We have the last hour coming up. So stay with us on air, stay with us on Facebook. If you're on air, you can join us on Facebook, Nicola Waishee Chan. You can ask us questions. I'm going to check if there's any there now, and we can go through those in the break. We'll be right back.
Whew. Is it all right so far?
Sideways.
Two teenagers have been arrested and charged with a murder in Shepherd's Bush. They were charged with murdering
Across the board training, what's that?
Don't know.
Will appear before magistrates on Tuesday. A wine cellar on West Drayton has been found guilty of selling alcohol to children. Last October,
Thinking thin but 17 stone. I was interested about that actually, what you said as well, because mostly body dysmorphia is the other way around. Not being in a bigger body thinking you're in a smaller body. It's normally smaller body thinking that you're bigger.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it says, yeah, because that's the more women-based though. Yeah, that's women-based.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, the guys is the opposite. I had eating disorder, it was the opposite. I mean, we could talk about that if you want. I had basically, so I was infatuated with the scales. If I stepped on the scales and it was a pound lighter, I would get pizzas, McDonald's, Burger Kings.
Oh my God.
That probably sounds like heaven to someone. They probably would
Yeah.
prefer that one.
We had the total opposite.
Yeah, I had a running ritual when I was trying to run. All the while I was on steroids, I would go for a run, about maybe 10k, come back, eat a packet of chocolate hobnobs, each one smothered with Nutella, just to make sure the pound didn't fall off.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then I'd be asleep all day because of the sugar. It's just crazy.
See, I used to run, punishing myself, thinking every mile, how many calories have I burned? Have I eaten this or that? And it was all going round and round and round my head.
I know.
I became such a good runner that I did the marathon.
Oh really? Oh, okay.
Because it was then those miles weren't enough. How can I do more? How can I do more? Oh well, I may as well do a marathon now.
Yeah. So you're at more peace now?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like the body image, all that stuff. Yeah, it's definitely
Yeah,
gone. But
that's
there's layers, isn't there? Which is another thing I want to ask you. Like when you clear one layer, like they say, new level, new devil, it's like what's underneath.
Yeah, that's a really good thing actually. I like that because I do say things about yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah, mention that. Yeah. But that's the important thing of understanding that it's an ongoing thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because anything deep.
Yeah, because you only let go of what you're ready to let go of at the time.
Yeah,
It'd be too much to tackle everything at once.
Yeah, and even then, I've sometimes thought I've dealt with something, and then might have had a knock or some incidents has occurred and it's kind of resurfaced. I'm like, well, it's not quite gone yet. I still got to work.
But then those neural pathways remain, don't they? The old ones. You can create new ones and have a new habit, but you could be triggered into an old one because something big happens.
Right. Yeah, that's what you're up against. That's why no illusion. Like,
that's where the awareness, isn't it? Because then you see the red flags on the way to it, and you can stop it before it happens.
100%.
But it's not always the case. So then there's also like with me, because with the eating disorder thing, I could find myself binge eating, and then what I would have to do is forgive myself and be like, well, it's actually normal. Like a normal person might binge eat, they just don't do it every day and doesn't become an eating disorder. They could have a breakup, like the classic Bridget Jones, she's had a breakup, she's eaten a tub of ice cream. But for me that would be, oh, I've binged ate, I'm a disgusting human being, and then it would lead on to more and more things. So eventually you have to be like, well, normal people get that. Like normal people get anxiety. They're just not having it every day, because you're going to experience stuff because you're a real human being, you have emotions and feelings and whatever. But knowing that that's okay. And I'm okay with myself having these emotions.
I think the problems exist only in the mind. You know, having some anxiety, having a moment where you might binge eat and stuff, that one incident is not necessarily the problem. It's the psychological drama that comes off the back of it that's normally the worst part about it. Most people that have a drink, the drink is not a problem. They beat themselves up hard, which then leads to then more abusive behaviour. You know, and that's what's the problem.
So with the binge eating, that then led to over-exercise, which fueled the exercise addiction. Right, we're back on. I feel like we're missing the what's ons. Hello, welcome back to 91.8 Hayes FM. This is the Waishee Radio Show. I'm Nicola Chan and I'm with Tom from Unstoppable Mindset. If you've just joined us, welcome. We're on the second half of the show. Just now you've missed some amazing stuff. However, I will be taking a recording of the show, making a podcast as always. You can join me on the Facebook page, Nicola Waishee Chan, or Waishee Radio, and I'll be sharing all the links to the podcast, and you can listen again or you can watch the Facebook live video, which is still live at the moment. So join us. So we're talking, well, actually in the break we were talking about having greater awareness, being more conscious, and how sometimes you go through one stage in your life, you think that you've kind of healed everything or fixed things in quotes, and then you find out there's another layer underneath. Let's talk about that, the new level, new devil.
I mean, I had noticed, and again, see, this is the thing, I didn't get any advice initially. I just started to notice through this, you know, I don't know whether it was, I feel blessed that I just started to really be quite introspective, and I had this massive self-awareness, and I was really listening intently to what was going on inside my head, to what I was doing, and then everything I did, good or bad, I was paying attention to kind of the aftermath, the after effect, any psychological noise, for example, like, you know, the voice inside the head, the putting myself down when I did something wrong, and even the bigging myself up when I did something right. I was really just listening to it all and studying myself. And one thing I noticed that there absolutely is layers upon layers and upon layers, because I mean, look, I started this journey myself, you know, let's say 35 when disaster struck, which again I now look at as a blessing, because it really was an intervention for me that made me change. But then over the course of like 4 or 5 years, I'm starting to take parts of me away, strip like layers away from me that I thought were me. I was absolutely convinced I was Tom, this person that was like this, that had this negative thought mindset. I thought that that's who I was, and that's because I'd spent 20 odd years ingraining a certain mentality into myself. So there would have been some subconscious beliefs spawned from like watching films and comparisons and so on, and that was all getting played back to me, and then I was affirming it because I believed that that was the fact, that was reality, that was what it was, and nothing could be any different. But I soon started to realise, I just had this strong awareness at the time of having a breakdown. I thought, this can't be me, this doesn't feel right to me. And it wasn't. It was all just a big lie. Tom Pace had all of these issues surrounded to his name, and he started to take one by one, take them away. I never ever believed, and again, this is about, people talk about beliefs. I had a firm belief that I would be doing drugs on my 80th birthday. It was what I wanted to do. I was adamant that I would never stop. I felt that it was my right to do them and my right to carry on because, well, I wanted to have fun. I'm entitled to have fun. And all of this started to change. And so, yes, you've got to understand, when you're looking at change in your life, you need to, from the very, very start, you need to acknowledge the journey ahead. Now, you're not just going to focus on the distance. You're only ever going to focus on one step at a time, and you're going to live in the moment and focus on each day as it happens. But you need to kind of know where you're going, and it's wherever you're trying to get to. If you're looking at self-transformation and change, it's tough. You have to face everything. You have to face the truth about yourself. Well, not about yourself. You have to face the truth about the nonsense that's going on inside your head. And you have to look at it as stored memory, and how can I overcome this stored memory? And one by one, you take off one layer, and then you think, okay, that's great. Like at one point I thought, I'm there, I've made it. And then something else comes up and you're like, okay. So as long as you're ready for that, then...
What was that feeling? I've made it.
Devastating. I was devastated. I'll tell you why. I was so devastated. This is why. I basically, obviously had taken upon the running process based on the fact that I went to a consultation and they told me I couldn't run because I had stage 3 arthritis in my toe. So it didn't bend properly, so I was going to have lots of problems. And I was like, no, I'm going to go and run, but I'm going to go and run up cliffs and mountains. That's what I'm going to do. And so I did it. So I started to get really, really mental grit, mental toughness, and I really learned a lot about the thought process and the way it worked. And I started to learn about paying attention and concentrating on body. I basically learned the art of mindful exercise. Like people talk about mindfulness. I applied it to every bit of exercise I did. I was concentrating on the steps and everything. I decided to enter what's deemed as the hardest marathon in the UK, which is in Exmoor. And it's 26 miles across the coastal lines of Exmoor, which is up and down constantly, like real high climbs and long descents.
This is your first run?
So this was the very first marathon I ever did. I'd never ever always said I'd never do a marathon because of the weight loss, so I said it, I trained, I was in the best place, physically so fit, mentally so strong. I thought nothing can stop me. And this is, part of why Unstoppable Mindset came about, because that's how I started to feel. That's why that name came about. So I'm there running over these mountains, like pretty much, and it was the most grueling event. And towards the end, I had a battle with this Spanish guy all the way along, and we had this like to-ing and fro-ing for the whole kind of 26 miles. And at the end of the run, it was about a mile left, maybe 2 miles left, and I thought I'd long cleared him. And I was exhausted, and I had no pace left, and I resigned myself to just like a plod. But then on some cliffside, he came past me, and my initial thoughts were like, okay, I'm done. Like, let him go past me. But then this inner urge was like, okay, now come on, we've got to do this. So I picked up this, like my mindset kicked in. I started to really pick up the pace when I thought I had nothing left, and we had this ferocious battle to the end. And this is where I learned the power of concentration and ego, because my concentration diminished. I focused on purely beating him. My ego kicked in, and I thought I won't be denied like this race against him. So I put my foot on the gas, snapped my ankle with about 500 meters left. I had an initial thought of stop, gripped my teeth, and just carried on running as fast as I could. Got through the finish line, collapsed, had a broken ankle, finished 5th.
You beat him.
Beat him, came 5th, and with a broken ankle, broken foot to boot. And I was on the biggest high of my life. Shortly after that, some old habits emerged. I went on holiday. I hadn't been drinking for a long time, and I thought, okay, I can have a drink. And drinking was never a problem for me. But it triggered a mindset, and it triggered some old ways, and it
Was that a habit thing, do you think? Like, I'm on holiday and on holidays I drink?
Yeah, I think so. Again, drinking wasn't a problem to me, so I never had a drink problem. The reason I stopped it for so long is because it was a trigger into drugs, and I did overcome that completely, to be fair. But yeah, it was just I just was in such a good place, and then that good place came to an end. And it was my first learning experience, and then from then on it's been that way, that it doesn't matter what state you're in, ecstatic, happy, sad, they're all fleeting, they all come and go. So what I started to look for after that, I went to a therapist and talked through some issues that I felt were still there, and she's the one that said to me, I said, I thought I was there, I thought I'd made it, achieved some sort of Superman status, which was just a load of nonsense and just ego talk, really. And she said, look, you're never there, you're never there, it's a journey that goes on. And I thought, well, that was reassuring to know. And I've lived my life now since then with that kind of reassurance that, okay, it's cool, there's no pressure, right?
That's nice that you say that, because obviously that's part of the addiction to exercise as well, is doing those events and having that massive high. Then you get the come down afterwards. Yeah. How else can I feel high again? Let's do another event. Yeah. And then that becomes the addiction. Absolutely.
It was actually really quite a powerful experience to go through. Also, I started to really feel that the running was becoming something that I felt I needed. And when I broke the foot, I was out for like a long time. Actually, it was 8 weeks with a boot on, but I didn't get back to running for a while, and I had to learn to live without it.
So that was meant to be.
Yeah. It was another big learning process. I had to learn patience and perseverance, and the running never was the same. And I can't run anymore because I've damaged the foot just that much. So I don't run at all anymore. But I realised and actually started to learn. And again, okay, well, I can't have anything to prop me up because I'm always at risk. I'm at risk if something props me up. Yeah, I know exercise makes me feel good, and so on. And there is things that you can do in life that that can lift you, but you have to be very, very careful, because in this world, there was a spiritual saying which as well gave me great strength, and that is, you came here alone and you leave here alone. You don't take anything with you. You came here alone, you leave alone. Nothing can remain. You are complete as you are. And the moment you realise this, and the moment you can stand in this world naked, strong, is your best chance. So I don't strive now for I don't want to be super positive, because I know it doesn't last. I have good days, I have bad days, but it's much more consistent now. I don't get attached to the good days, and I don't get beat down by the bad days. I just kind of accept everything for what it is. Life is too unpredictable. I'm still getting, you get bills coming through, you get debts coming through, you get life situations occur, relationship issues occur with people, career situations occur. You cannot control the outward circumstances. The only thing you can control is the inner you, is your ability to just take it all on the chin. Take it all on the chin and roll on. That's one of my mantras.
Do you have to remind yourself of these things?
All the time. I want to stress it again. I said at first, about 2 years into my journey, I would drive past the pub and I'd see boys out there with the beers and that, and I looked at that life and I thought, you know what, that was, although there's a massive, massive price to pay, that is easier. This way of living and this journey has been tough. You're facing yourself, you're taking away things that propped you up, was taking away the drink, taking away the drugs. Right, now how are you going to cope, Tom? Well, you better find a way. So I did. Then I had the running, and running was propping me up, and I was feeling really good, and it was a great experience, and I learned a lot from it. But when that was taken away, I'm like, okay, Tom, now what are you going to do? You're going to have to find another way. So it's you
so when all these things are gone, and then you're left with just you, and then you're feeling your feelings, your emotions. How are you then? There's an art that I'm in the process of
learning now, I suppose, and developing and cultivating, and it's the art of observing what goes on without any attachment to it. So the knowledge to know that your body is in a constant flux of energy and mental states and emotional states is very, very important to know. We're meant to feel, we're meant to experience. Now, I can say to you, okay, well, yeah, you know, we've got you to a great place, and you're thinking, brilliant, brilliant. Then all of a sudden, you find out 2 days later that your partner cheats on you. Now, there's nothing you're going to be able to do about that. You're going to feel something about that. You're not going to be completely numb to life. So it's not possible for you to get, we're not talking about some sort of Jedi power where you're immune to life. We're talking about an acceptance of life, and life is tough. And the moment you fully embrace that, acknowledge that, and then let your feelings come, let them come. One thing I know, and this is reassurance for me, anger comes and it's horrible, but it goes. Sadness comes, it's horrible, but it goes. Jealousy comes, it's horrible, but it goes.
You have to allow it though, don't
Allow
you?
it.
Because a lot of people, even on this journey, can feel like, well, I'm a positive thinker now,
Yeah.
therefore anger's coming up. No, let me suppress that down and let me remain positive. I'll do all the things that I know I need to do.
Yeah.
And I think even I did that for a while. I was like, well, I'm always positive. And I was exercising daily, so I was having a bit of high every day.
Yeah.
And then suddenly if I wasn't exercising a day, I'm like, I'm depressed.
Yeah.
So again, those extremes of it's all or nothing. If I'm not that high, I'm depressed.
Absolutely.
No balance in the middle.
No balance. And that's, again, I think it's a natural process that you will find out yourself. I think you're hitting like the mark there with what you're saying, because like, you know, there's a lot of interesting stuff out there about ego and identity, and you can lose. Like I lost a drug taking ego, replaced it with this super positive running ego, and that was also a lie. That was also false. That was also a mask. It also didn't last. It also didn't take me to the place that I truly wanted. And you learn all these things yourself. So, you know, for anyone out there that is feeling that discontent, that's going through anything, you know, with the body image, or going through any kind of outward search and has kind of kept coming back round to the same place, you know, it is start to listen and look at yourself and observe yourself, and you'll learn so much.
Outward searches in relationships, like codependency and things like that, like from childhood, from our parents, from our caregivers, and the way that we were brought up, whether we were shown love or not?
It's a tough one. Relationships. Are you saying about like searching again for fulfillment in relationships?
Because what you're saying is you're born alone, you're dying alone.
Yeah.
But yet we have this thing, it's a human need obviously to have kids and to find a mate and blah blah blah, and then it just gets all so confusing.
Very confusing. It's so tricky actually, and I was speaking to a therapist the other day. I was interviewing them, and you know, and I'm fully aware of this myself. Like I've learned this as well. You know, again, jealousy, all these issues. You know, when I first got with who's now my fiance, it brought out many demons for me. I realised I was a really insecure person. I was a really jealous person. Now, at the time, I perceived this as a bad thing, but this is another powerful thing. You know, if you are with someone and there is a connection there, that doesn't necessarily mean that this relationship is going to be perfect. But again, like what we just said, you were here alone, you leave alone, and in the process, you've got learning opportunities everywhere you go, and chances to grow as a person, spiritually, mentally, physically, and a relationship is one of the best ways of learning about yourself, without question. You learn about compromise,
especially when you meet your match, who's like a mirror.
Yeah, of course, exactly. Yeah, and you know, and that's probably that was the case for me, and you know, put her through hell in the process, but you know, she stuck by me through thick and thin, and was there right through my breakdown, and has actually been the most supportive and loving person that's ever come into my life. But being with her has been tough for me, you know, inwardly for me. So I've had to learn and adapt and face my fears. And again, I didn't want to accept the jealous side of me, so I worked on it. That doesn't mean that jealousy doesn't arise sometimes. It doesn't mean,
we said about anxiety, like it will pop up. It's a natural thing.
Natural.
And not that I am a jealous person.
No.
Like that's my identity.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I can feel jealous.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's okay.
It is absolutely spot on.
Right, we have another break. Hayes FM, 91.8 Hayes FM, stay online. We'll be right back after this.
Whew. That's good. Happy?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Hi.
Oh, it's hot there.
I
Boiling.
know, I've
How you
had,
doing?
it's been how you left it and it's just circulating the hot air.
I'll open this up. Did you manage with the
To turn the headphones down.
Yeah.
No,
Out of your car
show
at the side
me.
of a
We're live on Facebook, by the way.
arts
You'll
movie?
know how scary it
Oh,
is.
okay. Hello.
Just imagine what it's like to be a road worker on a motorway.
-5
So
or
please
something.
drive carefully.
Said it's Arctic standard, please, because I've just lost about, talking about weight loss, I just lost pulling seat. Our road workers are making the road safe.
So I think it'd be good
please
as
keep
well,
your
obviously,
respect
if
for
there's
them.
any more of your story to carry on with that, but I want to ask you about some things that might help people, like the inner critic and things, how to tame that. 'Cause the way that you describe it as well is really nice, about observing your thoughts. Do you do that on a day-to-day basis, like you're walking around, driving, you're getting on with stuff and you're doing it then? 'Cause to me, I'm doing that when I'm meditating. So I have to
Yeah.
like almost stop stuff,
Change
to
for
be
life is
still
about
and
making
calm, and then
changes to be
listen and
healthier,
hear what's
like
going
getting
on.
off 5 a day.
Yeah,
It's
Oh,
not
that's
hard.
better.
Often
Hold
we're
that
halfway
button
there and
in,
don't
yeah?
realise it.
Hold
Like a
that button
banana
in
our
and then
cereal,
use that knob,
glass of
and
fruit
that
juice at
changes that
breakfast,
level.
or veg in our soup.
That
Yes.
knob
Ah,
changes
okay.
the level.
Change
Yeah?
dried and frozen
Thanks.
count.
Do you want me to turn those
It's
down?
easy to be food
No,
smart.
these are fun.
For
Okay.
tasty 5-a-day ideas and recipes for cheap,
I'll,
healthier
close
meals,
this when you
search
go
Change
back
for
there.
Life
All
online.
right, thanks.
Playing the biggest hits of all time. Respect
Where were we?
music.
Where were we?
Sound of Great West London. 91.8.
I'm not really too sure.
Thoughts.
Yeah. Shall I shut this on?
Oh yes, please. Welcome back. It's 91.8 Hayes FM, the Waishee Radio Show. We are live on Facebook. Nicola Waishee Chan. I am Nicola Chan, and I'm with Tom from Unstoppable Mindset. So we're talking today about mindsets, obviously, positive thinking, and also not suppressing like your shadow self, your emotions, your anger, your anxiety, jealousy. We were just talking about before the break there. So just allowing those emotions to come and go, which then led me to think while we were off air about how you observe your thoughts, and are you able to do that on a day-to-day basis? Because for me, I do that when I drop into a meditation and I have to be quite still, even my body's still, and I'm quieting the stuff going on outside of me to be able to observe my thoughts. Otherwise, in the daytime, I could feel something come up and I'm already behaving and I wasn't aware that it was there. How do you do that in your life?
Yeah, so I basically, this actually is, these are not on now, is that matter?
Oh, maybe they got turned down.
Yeah, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the thing is, I inadvertently discovered it because I was ruled by my head for years, you understand? So I looked in the mirror and thought came, you're worthless, you don't look right, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't look right. So I was going along with everything that the mind came up and said. Any comments of can't, or any doubt, any fears, any worries, to me was fact. So then you live in this constant state of up and down, this roller coaster ride, and for some reason it seems to be, I believe that it's for us to transcend it personally, but we live with this belief that we are our thoughts, and our thoughts are us, are what we are saying. So when I obviously started to run, I had no experience of meditation or like the thought process at all. But knowing that with every footstep that I took, my body was moving, I was running, I had a set destination to get to, and all the while the thoughts inside the head were more sabotaging than anything else. So I had like self-belief, and I knew that I was going to, I had a belief that I was going to get to my destination, but the thought process was very much against that. So I was constantly ignoring the thought process. So for me, it came about through exercise. Once I did that with running, I started to get so hyped up about the power of that, and I realized that you don't have to do anything that the voice says, especially when it's the thoughts of I can't do this, I can't do that. So I started to teach it in my gym, and we started to focus on mindset sessions where I would get people to do like these things like arm circles for 3 minutes or so, or 2 minutes, and I would say listen to what's going on. So start to be aware of what the body's doing. You can feel the pain emerge. Then if you listen very, very closely, as the pain emerges, you'll hear a thought come spontaneously, not through kind of you actually thinking. It comes spontaneously of I have to stop, or I can't do it. Now if you believe in that thought, then you'll stop and you can't do it. But over months, and it still goes on. Huh?
It's a good exercise.
It was great. It was so powerful, and we started to focus on this like wholeheartedly, and it was getting people to achieve all sorts of things, because they were realizing that you don't have to go along with what the thought process says, and you have always got a lot more to give than what the thought process says. So for me personally, I started to share that with clients, but then I started to really analyze what was going on a day-to-day basis, and it wasn't through meditation. It was just a case of listening, because that constant relay, that constant voice, which I call the madman, and the reason I call it that is because I actually came to the conclusion after a period of about 2 years listening to what was going on inside my head. I realized that 90% of it, and 95% of it, was completely mad. It was not constructive. It was always self-sabotaging. It was always critical of myself, critical of the way I looked. It was doubting any decision I made.
Have you read the Chimp Paradox?
I've been given it, and I haven't actually read it. I have flicked through it, and yeah, it's got some great stuff in there, I think, about this whole concept.
You're already doing it.
Yeah, well, this is the mad thing about this journey, because when all these things happened, I noticed that it had profoundly changed my life, and I did have this awareness almost that the thoughts were not me, as whereas I spent my whole life believing that they were, and that everything that the mind said was a fact. But 3 years after all of this began, I actually came across the book The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and I started to flick through this book, and I'm like, hang on a minute,
I feel like we should start a Power of Now
club.
club.
Yeah. I'm like, this is just too strange here now, because I'm like, this has been going on. I'm like, hang on a minute, this was happening. And so for me, that book was dramatically life-changing for me, because it categorically explained my last 3 years since my breakdown, and it blew my mind. So that led me on a massive journey actually after that book, which took me to India. And since I would say more so in the last year, I have been focusing on the art of observing without attachment, and it's very hard to do, but the way I look at it is this: the thoughts and feelings, they come and go regardless. You can't suppress them, you can't stop them. You will actually notice, if you pay close enough attention, that thoughts, that normally the most negative ones, they're spontaneous, so they can't possibly be you. It's not like as in you're applying your mind to write a book. It's not that kind of thinking. That's different. That's conscious thinking, that's constructive thinking, that's done under like motivation, that's done with more of a rational kind of way of looking at things. The subconscious mind, and the voice of the subconscious mind, which I refer to as the madman, is just constantly firing your past at you over and over again. So any mistake you made, it's quite brilliant at just reminding you of that mistake and telling you, well, because you made that mistake then, surely that mistake's going to happen now. Because you failed then, surely you're going to fail now.
Let's just keep you safe, and let's just tell you that you're a failure, so you don't even try.
Don't even try.
Therefore, no one will laugh at you, no one will judge you, and you'll just be safe, doing nothing.
Yes.
Don't put yourself out there.
What can I say? There's books written on this. There's whole topics written on this. Your subconscious mind, scientific fact, runs 95% of your day. It's full of lies. It's playing back your whole life story, and predominantly all the negative parts. It is for you to look at that and to say, actually, no, in this moment now, I can do whatever I want. I can turn a new page, I can start a new life, I can change direction, change course. This is the power that we have consciously to do. However, you can feel really motivated and consciously make a decision to change, but like you found out and like I found out, there's layers to go through, there's a process to go through, and the madman, the subconscious mind, will do everything in its power to sabotage, to keep you safe, to hold you back. And it's observing that can start to bring you closer to an understanding that that exists and that's not you.
I had, just as we were about to go into the local news there, I had exactly that. 2 Fridays ago I performed in a burlesque show, a solo in Florence, and that was really out of my comfort zone. I was so scared that weeks before the voice got louder, and it was like, who do you think you are? They don't want to see this, you can't do this. And it just kept getting louder and louder and louder, so to one point I was like, I can't actually do this. And then I had this switch in my head and it was like, that means you have to, because you're getting so out of your comfort zone that the rewards are massive. So these are just showing you that it's big.
Do you know, that's beautifully put. And there's one thing I just want to say with that is, if you always look to do the opposite of what your mind is telling you, that's normally the right answer, because your mind will always tell you, no, don't do it, fear, 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 danger, 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 and then you find out yourself that actually it was probably the most rewarding thing you ever done, because you overcome fear as well at the same time, right? Yeah, definitely.
On that note, here is the local news. Stay with us.
Oh, that was amazing. So how was that, Lynn? How was that? In Florence.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was. But one of the reasons why it was so tough for me, I was telling a story like through the performance, and it was like a trauma story of mine, which I hadn't even told vocally yet.
Oh, right.
So it was big, and it in the lead up to it, because you know, like actors, like they learn how to act, they learn how to embody a character and perform it. I'm not an actor, and I'm playing myself. So in me going into myself to practice, even in the practice, every time I showed it to someone, I was breaking down in tears, and I was like, I'm literally reliving this trauma, like you said about reliving stuff over and over and over. Your whole body thinks it's actually happening right now. So it was quite traumatic.
So did you feel that quite therapeutic as well? Did like you feel a release of that, that past memory by doing it?
Because that's what, because I then felt split, like the age that I was then and the age I am now. I felt like for a while I was practicing, I'm these two people. Obviously consciously knowing that I'm not, and being very aware that these things are popping up and these limiting beliefs and stuff are showing up because I'm getting out of my comfort zone. But this side of me, the conscious side, that's done all this training and everything, just knows that I'll be alright at the end of it. And it is massive, and it is going to be really healing for me, and it is something that I need to do. It's part of my journey.
Amazing journey yourself, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. It is.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I mean, what's interesting though is how this show's developed. Like when I first started, and I was massively into fitness, not knowing I was even obsessed with it, and I just wanted to know. Like, I was still interested in people's mindsets, so I had people on the show who had achieved something massive in fitness, and I wanted to know what clicked. What was it that made them like get off the couch and go and achieve this amazing thing, especially if it was a big life transformation. But it was kind of still surface level, and I didn't realise like the next layer underneath that was this, and it was now it's like what awoke you, you know, what made you more spiritually awake, what made you conscious.
Mental.
Yeah,
It is mental.
I love it.
Yeah, it's happening though, more and more. Like people are going through this process
Yeah,
now.
or maybe they always were, but now that you are, you can see them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Are you back on? Or maybe there's a pause. We should have the what's on. What's on? No. Hi, welcome back to 91.8 Hayes FM, the Waishee Radio show. We were talking before the break there about ignoring the thoughts, like being the observer of our thoughts, and just watching them go by and not allowing them to stop you. And Tom was just saying about actually doing the opposite. So how do you, this is one question that I have actually, because sometimes you have a thought, like a gut feeling, I shouldn't do this, and that's when we need to listen, because that's like our intuition, isn't it? And then other times you have a thought that says, no, don't do that, because let's just stay in our comfort zone. There's a fine line, isn't there, of is it the gut feeling, is it actual fear, is it something that's going to happen to me, or is it this is just fears that, you know, aren't really true? Yeah,
that's a tough one, but I said to someone the other day actually, I've said to a couple of people, and this is what I found out as well. I do believe, and it's only my opinion, and I'm going to say that you're guided, and if you're meant to be doing something, you will be doing it. If you live in the cycle of listening to your to the madman, to the voice inside your head, to the relay of subconscious thoughts and beliefs, then you may not achieve something, but you will most likely, like a lot of people, end up in a situation where you're kind of hitting rock bottom and you realise something's gone wrong, and you'll realise eventually, hopefully, if you get the right advice and right guidance, that you have limiting beliefs in your mind and so on. In terms of like what's gone on in my life in this last 4 years, it's all just happened. And I said to a couple of people, there's been some involvement in me consciously, but when I started to live in the right way, and when I started to be good to myself and kind to myself and believe in myself, my life just changed. Opportunity came. I speak in the construction industry. I never searched for it. Interviews that have occurred, and situations that have occurred, and achievements that have happened, and they've all just seemed to have come about. It's like you do get gut feelings and intuition and so on, but when I've highlighted it to some people, okay, so look at the best things, the best things that have ever happened into your life. Were they something that you strived for, came for, or did they just come? And the majority of people say come. It's like that your soulmate, the perfect relationship. Sometimes people end up like one door closes and then all of a sudden some new amazing door opens. I believe that if you're morally living in the right way, if you're living with integrity and love, and you're doing all you can for yourself and for other people, life takes care of life. Everything just fits. It just does.
Although there may be some people sitting at home thinking, well, that's all great then, so I'll just stay here and it will all come to me.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, this is it. This is what but you won't. This is the thing. I'll say, okay, all right, we'll sit on the sofa then. And you won't. Who does? You won't. You just won't do it. I think we have a certain urge to move in a certain direction. Everyone has that urge, like you say, a gut feeling or an intuition. Like, we're not designed to sit, we're designed to hunt, to go out, and that's what we're still doing. We're just doing it in a different way. It's not possible to actually sit down on the sofa and do nothing, and if you do, and some people do, misery awaits. Okay, nothing will happen, and potentially, mentally and physically, you can end up not in a good place. But for me, there was a hell of a lot of, I felt that I wanted to change. And then as soon as I made a decision, as soon as I said, enough is enough, I'm not living like this anymore, I kind of was just propelled and moved in a certain direction. And yes, I've had ideas and spontaneous things that have come to me, but on the whole, it feels like just one big kind of energy force that's pulled me along and guided me in the right direction. You just got to look out for those signs.
But you have said a few times actually about this enough is enough, like this rock bottom state. So you had it at the beginning when you felt like suicidal, and then you've had it again, and you've had it again. Are those like the layers that you're talking about? And is that for you then a massive, all of your body's resonating with, no, this is not right for me, enough is enough, now I'm pushed forward to change something? Yeah,
absolutely. Has this worked? We're writing our life story. We're writing our life story, and we're writing the blueprint. We're not. The thing is, in all our fairness, I feel for everyone out there, including myself. I wasn't guided. No one taught me. I didn't leave school with a manual book of how to survive life. I wasn't taught about
how to be an adult.
How to be an adult. How to,
be a parent.
Exactly how to be a parent. How to be a good person. How to be secure. How to love you. No one taught me how to love myself. No one taught me how to love myself. For all the best will in the world and the best teachers in the world and best parents in the world, I still didn't get taught that. I've had to find this out the hard way.
Mostly you're taught not to love yourself, actually, aren't you? Not to accept, to always be better.
Exactly. And so going back to your point, we're not in any way do I encourage people follow your dreams, go with some gut feelings and some intuition, but you know, as far as I'm concerned, if you are happy, if you're living in the right way, you know, then I think the right path will be clear. And if you pay attention, even if maybe along the way you might get blinded and you might make some wrong decisions, as long as you're constantly watching and paying attention, you'll get yourself back in the right direction sooner rather than later. But
they're all part of the process, aren't they? Part of the learning.
It's part of the learning. It's just part of the learning. Yeah, and there is so much to learn.
So we have another break now. It's our final break till the end, so we'll be able to continue the interview all the way up until 3 o'clock, and then we have to go. So get on to the Facebook page. You can hear all the behind the scenes. We'll be right back after this.
Oh, so much cooler in here now.
Yeah, I know. It clearly wasn't working. I'm like,
thank
yeah.
goodness for me. Just for the last 20 minutes. That's right. I might say
You
something
can
better.
get really cold then as well. You know when you get like sweaty.
Yeah, I don't mind that. Yeah.
So I really want to ask you about your videos then before the end. As all your stuff came through to me, I listened to them, but I was like listening as I was getting on with other stuff, and I was like, oh, this is great. But then the other day I watched it again and I watched it. You know, like the first video I think you sent me with the like black character
Demon,
at
yeah,
the end.
madman,
Yeah, it made me cry actually.
did,
Like I've got a friend that happened to, and it just like hit me, and I was like, I can't believe I didn't watch this, because obviously visually it's very different.
Oh god, yeah. No, that literally
Inspired me as well, because you know, it's like I write and stuff, and when I love them, they're brilliant.
Oh, good.
That's why I was like, oh, I'm so excited to meet you.
Oh, wicked, man.
They're
Yeah,
really
wicked.
creative.
I'll make sure I send you everything we do. The Madman, we've got part 2, 3 and 4 coming up, and they're wicked. They're wicked. The second one is much clearer. Some people like the words in it were quite deep, quite spiritual, and they came, like I say, well
I think it
spontaneous.
gets you though if you recognise it, because you've got the one about
I've had so many
cocaine
people
that I
reach
don't resonate with.
No,
So I
yeah.
watch it, and I'm like, that's great,
Yeah.
but I don't feel anything.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah. No, the Madman, we had some lovely people reaching out, so I totally get that. You know, one young girl I was helping, she was like, showed to her boyfriend, she said, see, that's what's in my head. That's what I've been talking about, because he didn't get it.
She's got
And
a
I was
madman in her head.
And one guy contacted me on YouTube. He said, "Man," he said, "that's wicked." He said, "He goes, the madman's been living in my head rent free for years." I was like, "That is a wicked saying, mate. That is a wicked saying." Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that. But man, listen, you know, that was real for me. You know, on the day we'd done a lot of footage that didn't get in there, and you know, I was acting crazy, and people saying, "Tom," like all my friends and that, the people that were there in the class were saying, "Tom, that was hardcore." But I was like, "I wasn't acting. That was real."
Maybe you were doing what I experienced.
Yeah.
Hello, welcome back to 91.8 Hayes FM. We're live on the radio, we're live on Facebook. We're having an amazing interview with Tom from the Unstoppable Mindset, and we're just talking about his videos that he made. He did some spoken word videos, and one of them actually really touched me, brought a tear to my eye. I could really resonate with the emotions. Tell us what that was like making that video.
Yeah, so again, coming back to the whole thought process, the madman for me was when the
The video
urge.
is called The Madman.
Yeah, the video is called
Just
The
for the people
Madman.
listening.
Yeah, the video is called The Madman, and it's we're doing it in 4 parts, and then over the course of a period of probably a year to 2 years, I'm trying to piece together a great analogy for people to use that can help them observe their thoughts by referring to it as another, even just as, oh yeah, you know, that's the madman talking, that's not me. So that was the purpose behind it. The words and the concept just came so spontaneous, and this is, you know, what I was saying about kind of being guided almost. I've just felt so many urges, and they haven't been ones that have been debated. They've just been straight away pen to paper. You know, the madman is something that I feel the last 4 years since my breakdown, you know, everything I've been learning and going through was building up to it. It's really, you know, it's close to my heart and close to my mind, because the one common bond that we all share in this whole spectrum of mental health is the thought process inside the head. All the circumstances that are involved in why someone would get depressed and anxious and unfortunately and so sadly take their own life, they can vary. You know, it can be job loss, relationship issues, drug problems, all of these things. But what's driving, the driving force behind all of those circumstances, the voice that turns all those circumstances into deep, hurtful and painful problems, is the voice inside your head. It's something that we all live with, and for the majority of people that I've worked with, and it's all the people that I've spoken to in the last 4 years have inspired me, because they all take it back. No matter what the problem is, when you go back, it's all then thoughts that are emerging about that issue, and they're all mad. You know, one of the first things I changed in myself, and it was so profound, was my outlook on the weather. I was a big sun worshipper. I didn't like the rain, I didn't like the cold. I diagnosed myself with SAD, and it was one of the first things I looked at. I'm like, where's that actually come from? Like, that's complete non-acceptance to like something that is unchangeable beyond belief. Like, you cannot change it. So I realised that I had all this kind of like built up kind of relationship with the weather, and this dialogue.
Society does that though. Like, it's a bad day today because it's grey and miserable.
Yes. And for me, and don't judge anyone. This is just for me. I said, that's mad. That's mad. I can't have a problem with the weather because it's too changing. It's like, it's never consistent. So, like, and living in Great Britain, like the summer we're having as well, it's like you can't rely on that. So it was just, again, being aware of all those thoughts, and I just kept coming to the conclusion, that's mad. So then the madman was born, and since doing it, and we are going to explain it more and more over the 4 parts, and it is an analogy for the thoughts inside the head. But since doing it, we've had so many people reach out, and it's lovely to hear that you did resonate with it, because it's what we're all, it's in us. It's what's in us. There's no disputing it. You know, every single time you look in the mirror, you're being judged by yourself, not by anybody else. And you know, you could have 100, I could have 100 men line up here, we could have 100 women line up here, and they say to me, oh, you're handsome, and say to me, you're beautiful, and you will dismiss every single one of them if the madman inside your head says you are ugly, because that's what you believe. And it's about understanding that the madman's not real. He only exists with your belief. And where is your belief in those words coming from? Is it coming from when you were at school, you got picked on, or was it because you had a knockback when you were younger in a relationship? You know, look and find. I was
just going to say, actually, because like you said at the very beginning, that we're born perfect, you know, and we're born whole and not needing of any of these external things. That would have been something that was taught to you.
Absolutely.
You know, was said to you in like a fleeting comment, didn't mean anything to that person, but you kept on, you know, you held on to that, and that's still there for you. And it's a limiting belief, because it's a belief that's not serving you. But because you weren't born with it, you can change it. Absolutely.
There's one guru guy that I listen to, and he will say that's not original to you. He'll say that's not original to you. That's not. This is mind. And you're more than that, and that's indisputable. And without like going too intently into it, it's indisputable, because you know, I could erase your memory now and you'd still be here. You'd still be here, as alive as ever, probably even more alive. And you'd probably feel an immediate sense of contentment and peace, more than you've ever experienced, on the basis that every single worry and doubt and fear and negative experience in you would all of a sudden disappear, and you'd be reset.
That's also that power of now, though, isn't it? Because it's like right now we're here sitting on these chairs, and all these things that made up who we are now because of our memories, but they're not here right now. They're all gone.
No,
they're not real.
No, and it's so sad. And this is what this, you know, is really the true reason for me fighting the way that I do, in the sense of, you know, I will not be dictated to by a script in my mind. I know through experience, I'm not in no position to sit here and say exactly what it is. I have experience, and I feel something much stronger and much deeper inside of me that is far more powerful than what the mind is. The mind is a small part of us, but it runs our life. And the sad thing is, if you don't realise it, and you spend your whole life plagued by this critical nature, you know, lack of self-worth, you know, lack of self-belief and worthlessness, you know, when your time comes, when you pass, all of those things fall to the wayside, and you'll realise at that moment that none of them ever really existed, and that's just the way it will be.
Life's too short to wait till that time.
Life's too short to wait for that time, and I think it's great to speak to you and to hear that you're promoting this message, and I'm promoting this message, and I know others now that are promoting this message, and I just encourage everybody out there listening to this now, you know, if there is that discontentment in you, You know, life can improve, it can be different, and you are not the madman, and you are not the thoughts inside of your head. You can transcend all of it. It takes time, discipline, you know, and a certain amount of self-care and self-love. You've got to like respect yourself and not it's not a belief. You deserve better. It's as simple as that. You were born for more. You know, it's not a case of we all have this purpose, like we're all going to be millionaires. It's all superficial, but we are all here for a reason, and we have all got something way much more to give than what our head is telling us. And I've met so many people, including yourself now, that have proven it, like categorically 100% conclusively, with no dispute. Everyone that I, you know, met so many people that have transcended limiting beliefs. So that proves that they weren't that. So yeah.
So can I ask you, how do you start and end your day? Do you have any rituals to make sure that you have a healthy mind, like fitness for your mind, and keep working that mind muscle?
Yeah, definitely. I think I always, in the first year, again, was just something I just decided to start to listen to motivational speakers, Eric Thomas being like the main one, an American guy, the hip hop preacher, and he really fired me up. He kind of got me up off the sofa, and he's quite like animated, and he's like rah rah rah, and so I like really connected with that at the time. But yeah, I just listen into good content every day. I listen to spiritual stuff, you know, stuff about the mind. I'm just constantly feeding the mind in any way possible.
Do you do gratitude?
I don't do gratitude. I'd be lying if I said I do a gratitude list. I'm not very good at sitting and like writing something. Like I do write, but I'm not good at doing anything like so regimented as such. I have more than ever before, since this 4 years, have a very, very strong awareness of what I'm grateful for. And one of the things I always used to be grateful for, and this is going back to a young boy when I used to pray, because I always had this kind of like belief somewhere about something, and I didn't know necessarily exactly what it was. Call it God, whatever you want. But I used to just be thankful for my body. And you know, I said something to Brandon Block because I got a painting on my side at home, which is an original by a guy that painted the picture with his mouth. And his story is incredible, and he was a young guy, fit, and played rugby, and he severed his spine diving into the sea on a boys' holiday in Portugal, and he just survived. You know, he just managed to accept, you know, not immediately, of course. You know, he went through some dark places and some, you know, really had to overcome a hell of a lot, but he made the best out of his life, what he could. And now he does speaking, he's written a book, and he does these amazing like one-off paintings with his mouth. And so I still very, very grateful for my body. You know, it's something that we do take that so much for granted.
It's so interesting though that you were a child then, and you felt grateful for your body, and then society and everything else, and the fitness industry got to you and gave you beliefs that you weren't good enough and that you needed to change.
Exactly. Which is sad to say, but I'm glad to be, you know, separate from that now. And yeah, I think don't just outwardly, again, because I can say to some people who do a gratitude list, I've got nothing, I'm in debt, I'm in this and that. I'm like, no, you're breathing, you've got your legs, you've got your hands, you're capable of changing that situation. And so no, I'm absolutely all for gratitude, and be thankful for the most obvious things though. You know, you don't have to look, you shouldn't have to look too deeply into even being thankful. You know, if you wake up in the morning, you know, you talk about obviously meditation, and when I realised, I think it is in The Power of Now actually, and he says about breathing, and he says there's a point where the air comes in and it stops, and then as you breathe out there's a point also again which it stops, and if either one of those, if one of those didn't reverse, it's game over. And I was like, wow, yeah, I've never really thought about that. And so yeah, just appreciating the air that you breathe, you know, it's just small things for me.
I also like that pause, because life just stops for a moment.
Yeah, it's powerful. Yeah, really powerful. It's one of the biggest
powerful
things.
Now.
yeah. For anyone listening, I'm sure I heard it. It's like a world bestseller now, isn't it? But yeah, it's a transformative book, and with such amazing knowledge and information, and applicable. It's spiritual, but you don't have to be spiritual to even understand the power of that book at all. I don't think.
I need to reread mine. I read it a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's one of them ones where as you change and grow, you see different things in it.
Gotcha.
So as we're ending the show, do you want to share with us how we can get in contact with you, if anyone wants to work with you, how they can do that?
Yeah, well, I mean,
and get hold of your videos as well.
Yeah, definitely. All of the videos are youtube.com/Unstoppable Mindset, and obviously all of information on talks and seminars and stuff that I do are always promoted via the Instagram and Facebook. And Instagram is Unstoppable Mindset 1, and Facebook is Unstoppable Mindset. I do have a website as well, which a lot of it needs updating, to be fair, but it's www.unstoppablemindset.co.uk. But the main ones really I feel are Instagram and Facebook, because everything that I do, bits of writing and so on, and like any talks that I do, will always be up on there. So yeah, and the videos. And
as soon as we've got this onto a podcast, I'll share it with you so you can put that on there as well.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Let's do it.
Wicked, can't wait.
Thank you so much for being on the show. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, it's been wicked, man. It's been wicked.
Like I had my notes and I just kind of like...
No, it's been brilliant. No, spontaneous is the best. Spontaneous is the best.
I knew it was going to be a good one.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. So we are hopefully back next week. If you join my Facebook page actually for the radio, Waishee Radio, I will always put on there who's coming on, and then you can look forward to that guest, and if there's any questions that you have for them, you can get them in beforehand and I can always ask them. Oh, before we go, let's just see if there's anyone on Facebook with any questions.
Sideways reading.
Yeah, well done Nicola and Tom. Small beginnings, everyone. From small beginnings come big endings. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
Do you know Gary?
I'm not really too sure. I know a few.
I don't know
Garys.
if some of your friends connect with this, because earlier on I did the Unstoppable Minds going live at 1 o'clock, so I don't know.
Oh,
but I'll share it with you after as well.
Yeah,
You
cool.
know, you can do the watch parties now, can't you?
Yeah, I don't know that.
It's like you've got another live going on, so people
right.
see it and then they might think they're watching live, but then it says that your comments are not live if you try and comment.
Oh, right, cool.
Yeah, so we can do a double whammy.
Okay, cool. Wicked.
All right, thanks everybody. We will be back next week. Bye.
Thanks for that.
All right, let's shut off the Facebook.
Local news update.
Bye.
See you later, guys. Nice to meet you.
Two teenagers